Chapter 133, The Three Paramount Laws. Rest assured, Senior, our Luo clan owes everything to you, and will be sure to serve you with absolute diligence and loyalty, Luo Feng declared with a solemn expression. A faint smile appeared on Han Li's face, and he was just about to say something else when his expression suddenly changed slightly. You're far too kind, Chief Luo. Your breakthrough to the Grand Ascension stage is something for the entire island to celebrate. So you should go and meet your clansmen, Han Li said, then immediately vanished from the spot. Luo Feng was already accustomed to Han Li's elusive and enigmatic ways, so he extended a bow at the spot where Han Li had just disappeared, then took a moment to adjust his robes before making his way outside. At the same time, Han Li appeared back in his courtyard, then immediately made his way into the secret chamber. As he did so, he pulled out and put on his azure mask, upon which a speck of white light was flashing incessantly. Han Li pointed a finger forward, and a streak of white light flew out of the mask before transforming into a buzzing white vortex in front of him. A projection of another masked figure appeared, and all that could be made out of their facial features was a pair of blue eyes. Han Li wasted no time, cutting straight to the chase as he asked, You accepted my missions, so I presume you must know what that one-eyed giant is, right, fellow Taoist? I just so happen to have some knowledge in various types of exotic beasts, and if I'm not mistaken, the one-eyed giant you're asking about should be a rare type of earth attribute spirit beast. However, the description provided in the mission isn't very detailed, so I can't be absolutely certain. If you could provide me with some more details, I'll be able to make a more informed judgment. The figure replied. Han Li's eyes lit up slightly upon hearing this, and he provided some more details to the masked figure. It does indeed sound like you're quite the expert. The appearance of the beast. The fact that the masked figure was able to determine that it was an earth attribute spirit beast, just from Han Li's rough description alone, indicated that they were very knowledgeable, and perhaps they really did know what this beast was. It seems my guess was correct. The one-eyed giant that you're referring to is a beast by the name of the primordial fey beast, the figure confirmed after hearing Han Li's more detailed description. Can you enlighten me on this creature? Han Li asked. This is a type of extremely rare spirit beast, and I've never seen it myself. All I've heard about it is that it's born from chaos and possesses innate earth law powers, allowing it to manipulate the earth as it pleases. Upon reaching adulthood, these beasts will attain powers equivalent to those of a true immortal, the masked figure explained. Han Li nodded in response with a contemplative expression, then asked, I see. Is there anything special about such a beast? The only special thing I can think of about this beast is that its lone eye will occasionally mutate, giving rise to a wisp of time law powers, which is extremely sought after among all immortals. However, these mutated primordial fey beasts are exceedingly rare, with only roughly 1 in 10,000 such beasts undergoing this mutation. On top of that, wherever a mutated primordial fey beast appears, a period of extreme unrest is sure to follow in that area, the masked figure replied. The laws of time. Han Li murmured to himself, and even though his expression remained calm, his calm facade belied his actual emotions. He had previously suspected that the abilities unleashed by the primordial fey beast had something to do with the laws of time, so there was an extremely high possibility that the one-eyed giant had been a mutated primordial fey beast. That's right. As bearers of one of the 3 paramount laws, it's not wonder that mutated primordial fey beasts always stir up so much trouble wherever they appear, the masked figure said. What are the 3 paramount laws? Han Li asked with a perplexed expression. A strange look appeared in the masked figure's eyes upon hearing this question, and they seemed to have been rather taken aback. You don't even know about the 3 paramount laws? Forgive me for my embarrassing lack of knowledge, and please enlighten me, Han Li replied with a faint smile. This is a piece of general knowledge, so there's hardly any enlightening to be done. The 3 paramount laws refer to the laws of time, space, and reincarnation. It's said that those 3 laws are the root of all laws, and the other 3,000 great Tao laws were all born from those 3 paramount laws. The Paramount laws are also the rarest and most mysterious laws in the immortal realm, and even among the holy ancestors, not many have been able to master such laws. As for immortals below the holy ancestors, even coming into contact with the 3 Paramount laws is nothing more than a pipe dream, the masked figure said with a hint of longing in their voice. The 3,000 Great Tao laws. Han Li repeated to himself with a thoughtful expression. It's said that each type of law represents a Great Tao, and each Great Tao can ultimately lead one to the pinnacle of the true immortal realm. There are 3,000 types of known laws in the immortal realm, so that's why it's said that there are 3,000 Great Tao laws, the masked figure explained, still with a hint of longing in their voice. I see, Han Li murmured in a contemplative voice. Materials that contain the 3 Paramount laws are priceless treasures in the immortal realm, and it's impossible to obtain them through conventional means. I've heard that people have even begun offering large rewards on information pertaining to the whereabouts of primordial fey beasts. If you have some information, I suggest you sell it in the guild. I'm sure many people would be willing to pay a handsome price for such information, the masked figure said in a meaningful voice. I don't have any information on the whereabouts of any primordial fey beasts. I just so happened to see some records describing such a beast recently, and I was curious about what they were, Han Li replied in a nonchalant manner. I must admit, I was also very intrigued when I first saw a description of this beast, the masked figure chuckled. Thank you for answering my questions. I have no further questions, and I'll issue your reward to you in a moment, Han Li said. The projection of the masked figure nodded in response, then promptly vanished from the spot. With a wave of his hand, Han Li summoned the promised reward, then placed it onto the array plate's transmission site, and it vanished amid a flash of light. After that, Han Li removed the azure mask, and a faint smile appeared on his face. He wasn't smiling about the eye of the primordial fey beast. Instead, he was thinking about that crystal that the heaven-controlling vial had created after devouring so much of the immortal spiritual power in his body. Even though he hadn't made any further attempts, he presumed that just like with the manifestation of the spirit liquid, the vial was capable of creating this crystal more than just once. If that were the case, then theoretically, he would be able to secure an infinite supply of this material that contained one of the rarest powers of laws in existence. Now that he thought about it, this vial was able to speed up the maturation of spirit medicines. So it wasn't much of a surprise that the crystals formed by the spirit liquid contained the laws of wood or the laws of time. A solemn look then appeared on his face, and he decided that he had to keep this matter a secret. Given how precious materials that contained the laws of time were, if for some reason he was forced to exchange the crystal for other items, he had to ensure that his identity remained confidential to the other party. After all, given his current paltry cultivation base, revealing such a precious treasure in his possession would have been no different from courting death. With that in mind, another thought suddenly occurred to Han Li, and a grim look appeared on his face. Could it be that this crystal had something to do with the centuries of memories that he had lost? He immediately rose to his feet as this thought sprang into his mind, and as he paced back and forth in his secret chamber, this notion was becoming more and more likely in his mind. He pulled out the crystal once again, then sat back down with his legs crossed and began to carefully inspect it with his spiritual sense. However, even after an extensive and thorough inspection, he still wasn't able to find anything useful. Han Li pointed a finger at his own glabella, and his law destruction eye appeared amid a flash of black light, following which a beam of black shot out from within. At the same time, 2 bursts of blue light shot out of his eyes, and the 3 bursts of light fused as one. At the same time, Han Li chanted an incantation while making a hand seal, and an enormous burst of spiritual sense surged out of his glabella amid a flash of translucent light, then also fused together with the 3 bursts of light. As a result, the 3 bursts of light gradually transformed into a huge black and blue eye that began to scrutinize the crystal, This was a secret technique that combined his Law Destruction Eye and Bright Sight Spirit Eyes. A burst of black and blue light shot out of the eye to envelop the crystal, immediately following which a hint of elation appeared on Han Li's face. At the center of the crystal was a faint golden thread that was barely visible, and it would have been impossible for him to find it if not for the use of this secret technique. Half a month later, a certain area of the sea near Dark Vale Island was churning incessantly, while an enormous vortex was slowly revolving. Han Li was seated with his legs crossed on a reef island, contemplating something meticulously with the crystal pressed against his forehead. According to the scriptures that he had recently consulted, it was virtually impossible to try and master the power of laws purely through inspecting a material that contained that power of laws. However, if he were to use a cultivation art related to the laws of time, then this was definitely going to be a beneficial experience. It was a bit like discussing cultivation insights and experiences with other cultivators. As for exactly how this was beneficial and how much one could benefit from such discussions, that was up to them. Time was one of the 3 paramount laws, so he naturally didn't want to pass up any opportunity to try and examine it. After an indeterminate period of time, Han Li opened his eyes before removing the crystal from his forehead, then shook his head with a slightly disappointed expression. Even after so many days and experimenting with all types of methods to try and detect the laws of time within the crystal, his efforts had proven to be completely futile. But that really wasn't much of a surprise. He continued to fiddle absent-mindedly with the crystal in his hand, but his gaze was piercing through the sea as he observed his earthly deity avatar on the seabed in a contemplative silence. The crystal in his hand didn't seem to have been changing at all, but in reality, the laws of time within it were getting weaker by the day. And the golden thread was gradually becoming shorter and shorter. At this rate, it was only going to take about half a month before the laws of time in the crystal completely faded, and that was a rather disappointing prospect to Han Li. As a result of this, it seemed that his idea to sell the crystal to others in exchange for resources simply wasn't feasible. He withdrew his gaze as he turned his attention to the crystal in his hand once again. Nevertheless, I have to give it an actual try. After all, I can wield some power of water laws now. Han Li murmured to himself as he raised a hand before making a beckoning motion. The massive vortex in the sea up ahead churned violently for a moment before gradually subsiding, immediately following which a blue shadow emerged from within in a flash. The blue shadow quickly descended beside Han Li, following which the blue light radiating from its body faded to reveal the earthly deity avatar. Han Li tossed the crystal at his earthly deity avatar, and the latter caught it as black light flashed from its body, following which the thread of laws on top of its head slowly burrowed its way into the crystal. In order to examine the power of laws within the crystal, it only made sense that the power of laws had to be used. However, the laws of time within the crystal was one of the 3 paramount laws, so there was an element of risk to what Han Li was doing. However, he naturally wouldn't be willing to give up on this idea without attempting it, and he could only hope that this wouldn't have much of an impact on his earthly deity avatar. As these thoughts were going through his mind, the thread of water laws had already entered the crystal in a flash. All of a sudden, the crystal began to glow with scintillating golden light. Han Li was ecstatic to see this, but before he had a chance to do anything, an unexpected turn of events suddenly unfolded.